Hello and welcome to another episode of Nuffink and Like It, the podcast that chronicles the Frontier Wrestling Alliance through its appearances on television. One day I'll just write down like a catchy phrase to encapsulate that, that I can just, let go at the beginning of every episode. I am Kieran Lefort. Joining me, as always, channeling the superpower I believe every Scot involved in wrestling has. Say his name and he appears. We believe in Eddie Sideburns.
I'm going to start singing London and Paris. No, I'm not good at singing as him. Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah, apparently if you just say a Scots name, they appear and teleport, whatever. So
Yeah.
But I'm too busy finding out why there's only one Scot that's been in the FWA so far. And I hope there should be more.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure if there are any more. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, our scene was kind of barren, I assume, by this point, at least up here.
I'd have to work on a second impression.
You can just leave it to the actual Scot if you tell me who it is, Like if Drew Galloway appeared, I'd be like, "You bastard, Lee! You set me on fire!"
I don't think he ever did.
No, I know, sad, but yeah, happy to be here. Can't wait to talk about F1 on the TV.
And of course, by a round and he appears, we also believe in Andy Ogden.
Hi, Kieran, once again. Hey, it's very rare I buy around nowadays.
Exactly.
I'm a cheapskate.
I know. You're always after Jeff's wallet whenever you go at the bar.
Correct.
Yes.
You know my trick. I'll always say I'm going to the toilet and then get Jeff stuck at the bar.
You'll help him carry him on the way back.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was very good in when we did Road to Glory, where you just saw them when we were saying in PCW and watching Road to Glory, where one of them would just wander off and just stand at the bar that was in that venue, and you're just like, "Oh, right, okay, they found their place now."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, as I sort of alluded to on the last episode, we're not actually going to be talking about any wrestling on this show. So prepare for this to be our lowest downloaded show ever. This is sort of encapsulating some appearances of FWA on normal, quote-unquote, television programs. And a little bonus thing we've chucked in as well. We'll talk about what they are as we go along. Firstly, a little bit of fallout and FWA-related news that's popped up since we last recorded. I cannot remember the name of it, and I couldn't be bothered to search for it. There's an upcoming documentary about Doug Williams I saw mention of recently that's in the works. And the Raindance Film Festival are renaming one of their awards in honour of Elazar Cabrera, who did a lot of work with them throughout his life. He was, in fact, at one point an intern to the daughter of the founders of the festival, who is a good friend of mine and was my manager for about 8 years in a previous job.
Small world.
Yeah, her other intern was Edgar Wright, the guy who made Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, etc.
The Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's nice that they've named that after Elazar. That's really nice.
It's really sweet, and it's an award for like really low budget films that are trying to break out in the spirit of the kind of stuff he made as well. It's really nice. Also, whenever he listens to the show, I get messages from Dean Ayers. So regarding our last show, which was about Revival at Crystal Palace, we, of course, also had Alan Boone, Mark Priest, for about an hour at the beginning of the show, where he talked about his adventures actually as a wrestler, including wrestling one Rich Leaney in Brawl, who is a friend of Dean and Alan for a long time. Dean says, "I've seen Mark Priest versus Richie Lee from Brawl. It is, of course, terrible." He also says about a line that got cut from the Revival commentary. He says, "When Robbie Brookside interfered in Drew's match versus Jody, I know Scousers like to steal things, but Robbie Brookside has just stolen this match away from Drew McDonald." All the tech guys in the gallery loved it, but Mick Robertson, the producer, later heard it and went absolutely mental, saying it was racist. He also says he remembers doing the recording. It was on the day that Spike Milligan died, because he remembers getting a text from his brother when he stepped out of the recording studio, which would mean it was recorded on February the 27th, 2002. And he also has a note about the Brighton show that never was, that Alan made a quick mention of. He says it was set for the Moulscombe Leisure Centre. these are all Dean's words. Moulscombe is the worst, in capital letters, area of Brighton where there is so much crime the papers don't even bother to report it anymore. I went there with Barry and Elisar to talk to the people there and to view the venue, and they were going to call the show Lords of the Ring as an inside joke regarding Brighton's famously high gay population.
Oh, jeez.
So there's an insight into the minds behind the FWA in 2002.
Oh, God. Okay.
So we're going to be skipping through the years here. We're going to do this in chronological order. We're not really going to talk about what was going on in the FWA at the time. But the first program we're going to talk about is called On the Ropes. This was an episode of Channel 4's series called The Other Side, which would be half-hour documentaries on various slices of counterculture, as was the hip thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, like, following the footsteps of alternative comedy in the late 80s, early 90s, other subcultures and underground scenes started to get their moment in the sun via late-night TV. And guess what is still scorching hot in 2000? Wrestling. You can tell it is Channel 4 late night subculture TV because the very first thing you see in the opening titles is a bare boob.
Wow.
Yeah. So we open on Paul Travell and Mark Sloan running through a sequence in a ring in the FWA Academy in Portsmouth. A bored voiceover man tells us that after touring the country for 2 years, the Frontier Wrestling Alliance are getting ready for one of their biggest shows to date in their hometown of Portsmouth. And
he was so boring. He sounded like
dreadful.
He had nothing better to do.
The whole production of this show was cheap as fuck. It is on a par, no joke, with the stuff me and my mates were filming at this time. And we just had home camcorders. So no wonder we thought we could make TV and movies if this was the kind of shit that Channel 4 were putting out.
Kieran, one thing I was going to ask. So one of the first shots is of a dingy industrial estate in Portsmouth.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask, is this the same place where the Rev Pro do the training nowadays?
I don't know where Rev Pro do their training, to be honest. I'm not 100% sure that this is...
Because I know it's still in Portsmouth, isn't it? One of the schools.
I'm not 100% sure that this is the same unit that I went to as the FWA Academy. I did not go to train to be a wrestler, by the way. I was accompanying a friend of mine who wanted to be a wrestler and who did like one of the FWA week-long camps. And we decided we were going to make a documentary about it, and Mark Sloan was happy for us to do this. So I went along and basically filmed a week of the FWA Academy. I think this is the same industrial estate but a different unit, because that one was big enough to have 2 rings in and a floor area, and it had a mini stage as well, and this just looks like you've got enough room to get a ring in.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's near.
They might well have taken it off Mark's hands when he's decided he didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So the show that they're building to is No Surprises 2, which was held on October the 29th, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Scattered throughout this, we get clips of an interview with Elisar in a churchyard. This is the best shot stuff in the whole thing. Like, this is properly set up and lit on a tripod. This actually looks professional. So Elisar is in a churchyard, and he basically explains things like the history of wrestling, kayfabe, insider terms, all that kind of thing. Just like to bring a general audience up to speed with what wrestling really is in 2000.
It's like we're seeing 2 different documentaries when we cut to Elisar.
A little bit, yes.
Because it's like dark and dingy with the wrestling part of it, and Mark Sloan. Not anything bad about that, but then it's like Elisar's like, he's like Eric Cantona waxing lyrical about wrestling. And like some kind of like art form, and it's great. I love it. And this is the first time I've properly ever seen Elisar on kind of TV or any kind of thing for me. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite well spoken.
I suspect they had most of a cut together, and they went back and shot this with him later on as links to hold it together. Like they've looked through it and gone, these are the gaps, these are the holes that need plugging. Never has anyone looked or sounded less like a professional wrestler than Mark Sloan in the interview we get here. He is a small, not very articulate young man in a massive puffer jacket with a dreadful haircut, talking about how his school life was shit and how his parents hate wrestling.
One of my notes about what Mark Sloan's parents says about why are you doing that shite.
Yeah,
I did actually put I'm sure they said he's from Halifax.
No, he's not from Halifax. They did. They had recently done a
Did a
show
show?
in Halifax. Yeah, they did a co-promoted show with EWW in Halifax.
Right. Well, I would say that venue in Halifax, I've seen wrestling in there twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time they did a banging chicken curry and rice. It was that great a show and a great curry and rice that on them reviews, Ben Corrigan, Brit Wrestle Away days, thought, I'll come to the next show that they had there. And you know what? There was no chicken curry and rice. So it was fucked up.
0 stars.
He is Mark Sloan has just like his wrestling character, charisma personified. Like he's just, and I've put here Mark Sloan. Here we go. His parents were very anti-wrestling. He probably got disowned. I wouldn't be surprised. He would bullied at school. No surprise. Just like, and from the way, like, if I'm a producer trying to look for a story and stuff like that, and talking about wrestling, and obviously wrestling being for outcasts has always been something that's been kind of banded about. That very much, I would take that to my advantage and take full usage out of it.
Yeah, I think they try and set him up as like a bit of a sympathetic figure, but in a story arc, the sympathetic figure comes out on top at the end, and I really don't think Sloan does across the arc of this show.
I think what we've learned from many of the episodes we've watched is that he has a thing for feet, doesn't he?
I cannot wait to go on a rant about, because I saw the card that this show was kind of filming about. It's in his hometown, and they do I wait until the match. Well, fuck it, we'll talk about it. They do a fucking draw with him.
Yeah,
and it's in the what the fuck is this?
We'll get there.
But yeah, he does like feet. That's the main thing we know.
Take your shoes off, he appears. Justin Richards is guiding a class that includes Scotty Rock, James Ty, Scott Parker, Angel, and some others. Clearly bullshit, because he is teaching these wrestlers the day one back bump. On that week, I went and filmed. Sloan took a day one class, and it stuck with me ever since. He told them there were 6 basic bumps: back bump, front bump, left side, right side, flip bump, and another back bump, because that's the one you're going to be doing the most often.
Here's one for you. As in terms of back bumps, when you fell over in the street, have you ever done it like this?
I have while filming a fight scene for something, and it ended with me fracturing my elbow. Because I'd taken my elbow pads off, not thinking I was going to get knocked over for the shot we were doing, and I ended up driving my right elbow into a brick floor, and I've still, even today, if I roll over it the wrong way, I get a shooting pain up my arm, and I have to crack it at least once a day.
Being a trained wrestler for
of course,
long a time.
Voice of experience,
yes. Sorry, just working in there, brother. You have taken back bumps before, but I've taken outside in normal life. We were always kind of said, if it's icy and you fall, do a back bump. So like, one time when I was coming home from walking home or something, it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I slipped on ice and I did a back bump, and I was like, oh, not as painful as I thought it was. But then I woke up the next morning and was like, my back is so fucking sore.
You've just reminded me that I've done exactly the same thing. It was a few years ago, and the front step of my flat gets quite icy, and I stepped outside and went up in the. It was one of those moments, like it was frozen in time, and I could see the sky on my own feet at the same time, and I was like, wrestling back bump, and I was like, same as you. Oh, that was okay. And then like later on, like, Jesus fucking Christ, everything hurts.
There was one time where I did a show and I forgot my knee pads, because normally as a ref, the always best option is to kind of invest in knee pads, and the amount of times you're jumping down on your knees or kind of going down your knees to count and stuff like that. And I think I did the show and I was like, yeah, that's completely fine, I did okay. And then the next morning, after like the night out and everything, and I was trying to get out of bed, and I'm just like, nope, I'm just gonna lay here. It was like Homer Simpson, where he's like, I'm a cozy marshmallow, but the only reason why I'm a cozy marshmallow is I can't really move.
I would say when they do a back bump, they always say how to get up is like you've got to roll your elbow over instead of putting your hands out and.
There's a way you've got to. There's a way you've got to kind of get up. That William Regal bit in that WWE breaking ground thing where you start shouting at people for getting up the wrong way from bumping or something like that. There's like a way of doing it, but it's a back bump to protect yourself from the ice. That was it, and slipping and stuff. I mean, wrestling in it, it works, but Justin Richards' charisma person, he is
there are better interviews in this show than the one with Sloane. Let's say that at least.
There was a bit where they were having Justin talk, and my hero is here because we're back in time, Guy Thunder, and he's messing about with his missus. And I completely forgot who he was until I went and looked at the card, and I was like, "It's Guy."
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, him and his missus just trying to mess around with Justin Richards is trying to be like, we need to be serious. We're going to do these moves.
Sloane says this is the first time they've run the same venue twice, which I'm not sure is the brag he thinks it is. It basically just sounds like they don't want you back. A man named Graham appears on the screen. He is labelled as FWA promoter and is asked how many tickets they've sold. And he says they're hoping for 300 to 400, but have sold just over 100 tickets.
Oh, he was never FWA promoter. I did put it looks like he's selling cigs more than promoting the show.
I will say, by the time I turned up, that man was not there.
He's the guy who's at the side of the merch desk with the jacket filled with fucking DVD VHSs of he's tape trading. He's the underground tape trader. He looked like. Who is he? Do we know who he is? Actually,
no idea. No idea. Like I said, by the time I arrived a couple of years later, he'd gone. Okay. Justin Richards goes through how to be a heel. Basically, boils down to insulting people and breaking the rules. I like where he says insult their children. The bit that I found funny was every wrestler who has appeared has had their nickname in quotes. So it was Mark, specialist in quotes, Sloane. They leave the quotes off Hazardous Paul Travell, so it's like Hazardous is his first name. He says you get paid very little by a lot of people, the FWA not included, and that you get treated like shit and beaten up. But he loves wrestling people who have the same passion for it that he does. And thinking about it now, I think he would have made a better sympathetic figure to follow.
Yeah.
Because he's the hometown babyface going for the title in the main event of the show they're promoting.
Also, like, the way he's, like, starting to bury motherfuckers in the scene already. He's like, well, they don't pay me. They don't pay well other than this company who I work for, brother.
Yeah. Oh, well, the FWA gets buried back later on. We'll get to that.
Oh, yes. Can't wait for that.
LSR explains the role of the valet to segue to Angel and her rubbish fringe, credited as Annie Webb, which I assume is her real name. She says, it's a freeway match, so there's 3 guys in the match. There's my guy, Scott, there's Jody, and there's her guy, whoever that is. I don't know, right? Brilliant. That man would be a man we've mentioned before on this show, the tremendously named Stuart Fury. And the match they're talking about is actually the 3-way where Jody wins the then European title off him. The title that would go on to be the All England title. I think we covered this back in episode 1, like all the craziness surrounding the All England title. She explains that she and her are going to be having a cat fight, and then the blokes will come out and break it up. Her is Victoria de Montfort, who we can also see in here explaining in the background what's going to happen. And then
Sorry, what was her name? Nicola Thompson, or whatever they called her?
Yeah. You cut to this clip that is basically Justin Richards agenting a cat fight.
And I've got to say,
yes,
Demon Fort fucking launches poor Annie Webb.
It becomes a bit of a running thing. So, like, you see them talking about how Annie's complaining, like, the first time they did the run through, like, Demon Fort threw her down and she landed on Vicky's hockey stick. So they go through it. Vicky's like, okay, I'll throw it behind me then. And then she grabs her and throws her down, and the poor girl smashes her head against the wall. And then, later on, like, when they actually get down to it, like, they're about to go out and do it, they talk about another rehearsal where she got thrown into the wall again. So we get Annie at home, and she said, I really had it in my mind that I wanted to do valet because I'm not thick, right? I've taken that out of context. She actually goes on to explain that you don't get booked as much if you're just a wrestler as a woman. You basically, if you want to get on shows, you have to valet as well. We get Nikki Thompson sitting on her bed explaining the character of Victoria de Montfort as a posh rich bitch who always has to get her way. And then back to the catfight choreography. There was a lot about this catfight in this episode.
Kieran, what I liked here was Demon Fort giving meaning to a bra and panties match.
Yeah, I like that.
It wasn't the traditional style of bra and panties match, which is like the women rip each other's clothes off. It was her underwear is on the line and she wants to see two men fight for them.
Yeah,
I bet they did not say that in any of the advertising for that match, and it was a bunch of horny motherfuckers turning up looking to see some underwear, and it was not on the person they wanted to see it on.
We're talking about correct charisma and stuff like that. Like Demon Fort in her interviews is just like, and the way she comes across, she's someone you would want to be following and being interested in compared to, again, I'm really sorry, we do like you, Mark Sloan, but just at this point, there's a ton of people in this who are just more interesting. You'd want to follow their career than him.
She comes across as a very normal, but sort of like slightly posh middle class girl. Yeah. Really, like I have known 100 film PR girls exactly like her. So our bored voiceover man says, 6 days before the show, Mark tries to book a surprise act. As we cut to Digital Dreams with a Z, the shop, the DVD and video game shop that Sloane worked in, and unfortunately sounds like it sells porn.
Or he'll be like that fucking fella from that bloody in Ashton-under-Lyne then. Mayhem in Manchester.
Oh, Jesus.
Mark Sloan.
Oh, God. So Mark comes off the phone and he tells the camera that it looks like they're going to get Shinjiro Otani, who wrestles for a lot of the bigger promotions in Japan. Otani had been in the country about 3 weeks earlier to lose to Chris Daniels on the UCW taping at the Sky Dome, footage of which has never surfaced of that show. He did actually work most of 2000 in New Japan and went back for the start of 2001 before leaving for the newly formed 01 in March 2001.
How old was Otani by this point into his career?
I remember seeing Otani originally like 93.
Because like there was just... It was like, I mean, if you're trying to advertise, like, well, not advertise, but if you're someone watching this and you're not fully well aware, and they're trying to book a surprise, it's like, oh, we're trying to book this Japanese wrestler in Shinjiro Otani. If you're like a casual, I fucking hate saying this.
Yeah, I kind of had a point about that later on. So Otani would have been 28 and 8 years into his career at that point. And I think was sort of between primes between peaks, because he peaked reasonably early as like a junior heavyweight. Like he was, I remember like Starrcade 1995 is WCW versus New Japan, and Shinjiro Otani versus Eddie Guerrero is the best match on that show. Love it. It's one of the matches that got me back into wrestling after a wee tiny bit out of it recently. So yeah. And then Shinjiro Otani, surly bald old man in 01, fighting alongside and against Masato Tanaka is also a treat. But like in 2000, I don't think he's that much of a deal. I'm sure somebody can DM us and prove us wrong. But yeah. I mean, it was just one of those ones where it's like, and then obviously the surprise they then end up getting because they don't. Like as like a mark, you're looking at it. If that was in like the years when when Otani was more known, you'd be a bit like, I kind of want my money back at this point because that's not a surprise.
Kieran and Eddie, I was howling at this explanation why they couldn't get Otani. We will get to that. We've got a little bit to go, and then we'll get to that because that is possibly the highlight of the episode. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
We cut to a very flickery CRT monitor showing the FWA website as Mark is asked about ticket sales. He dodges the question by saying they find that with this venue, people tend to buy on the door, and they've got a lot of ads going out this week. Cut to an A3 poster clearly in the window of the same shop featuring 3 indistinct blokes in T-shirts and baggy white trousers, not looking remotely like wrestlers. Tickets are £6.50, which is £12 in 2024 money if you want a quick look at inflation. If you want another look at things have changed, how things have changed since 2000, we see Angel in the gym doing some training, doing some weights, and she's talking again about the cat fight. And she says, at the last show in Dudley, I didn't really get involved too much. I got groped. That was about it. Horrible.
Hell.
And she also,
classy, Dudley.
yeah. She also has the very poignant line, which was very 2000 wrestling. Valets are mostly there to give the blokes something to look at.
So when I've seen this bit, I've put Annie Webb. The computer screen was giving me a headache when it flicked to show that computer screen. Is Annie Webb being trained by a jacked-looking Phil Collins?
Yes,
because what, is he gonna fucking spurt into song at this point? Just the way they looked, I was like, that's definitely Phil Collins.
Yeah, take a look at me now, Training Limited.
But there was, when she said about the groping, I was like, that's the most casual kind of
right?
throwaway.
And it was just considered like normal. It's just gross.
I can feel it, Annie in the air. Oh, Lord.
So Demon Fort says, she talks about how different it is to performing Shakespeare or a contemporary play on stage, because in wrestling, quote, it doesn't matter if you forget a line because the crowd are so hyped up. I beg to differ. In British wrestling, if you have clearly forgotten your line, the crowd will fucking savage you.
I doubt Romeo and Juliet have many bra and panties matches. Bloody hell. Shakespeare.
That one ended in a draw. Mark Sloan gets off the phone and gives the camera the bad news that due to the death of Yokozuna, legitimately, Yokozuna died in Liverpool on October the 23rd, 6 days before No Surprises 2, while he was on tour with All Star. He says, due to the death of Yokozuna, no Ohtani.
Right, was he a family friend? He had to be a family friend or something like this, because why the what was this?
I think that Ohtani got pulled onto the All Star tour to fill in, because he is on their York Hall show on November the 3rd.
Right.
I was thinking what Eddie was saying then, like close family friend. Was he on that big fucking family tree? What the Rock?
No. But so Ohtani, there's a very good chance their paths might have crossed in New Japan when he was Kokina Maximus. Because that was around the time that Ohtani was just starting out. So that was it would have been a very thin sliver, because that was when Ohtani was starting out and just before he went to the WWF as Yokozuna. But we get a hilarious shot of the Daily Star's front page that says in giant letters, tragic grapple giants spider terror.
Jesus.
When it was an hotel in Liverpool, weren't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
I think was it the Adelphi Hotel?
I think quite possibly. I'm sure you also have seen the Big Breakfast interview where he's on the bed flirting with Denise Van Outen just days before he died.
Yeah, the big story where Denise Van Outen supposedly killed.
So the two chief suspects at the moment are Denise Van Outen and a spider.
He died doing what he loved best.
Laying down.
Probably sleeping in a hotel or something. Yeah. In the idea of it, just by that, and they don't explain why. They just say, right, he's decided he can't make it because he's too sad about Yokozuna. Again, if you're looking this from a Mark's perspective, you're thinking, what the fuck does that have to do with anything unless he's really upset?
The bit that got me was Sloan saying, it's going to be tough now. Mate. Did you think an unannounced Shinjiro Ohtani was going to shift 300 tickets to a show in Portsmouth in under a week? What planet are you on?
Shinjiro Ohtani had more fun wrestling PN news.
What was that, a match, Eddie?
Yeah, I've just found out. So
that was the opener of that York Hall show. Yeah.
Yo, baby, yo, baby, yo.
Yes.
Oh, nay.
Graham is then asked if he thinks the show will make money. And he says, it's going to take another couple of years because we still got to get our equipment and lighting and everything like that. We're still doing small shows now, but next year and the year after, we'll be doing bigger and bigger shows. And then that's when we'll be making the money.
This time next year, then, we will be millionaires.
He was part right. They did indeed do bigger shows, but I think the only person making the money was not in this documentary. Mark Sloan is out of his horrible orange t-shirt and into a horrible luminous yellow hat as he shows us, fucking hell, whatever it is they've made for this entranceway.
Right. This is what I was trying to say. This is a good. So when I saw the mess that was, all I could think about was the Simpsons episode where Homer gets the barbecue and he has the picture on the barbecue. And then he takes away it and he goes, "Why can't you look like that?"
Yes.
I just got visions then, Eddie, of when Mard is away and he has to do the fancy dress costumes and sleep the Simpson as Idaho.
Yes.
It's just like what looks like a couch or something. It's just on, and it's like, I'm Idaho.
Yeah. We'll have to post the screenshot that Andy put in our group chat. Jesus Christ. It looks like a bunch of 12-year-olds have tried to make a Robot Wars set in someone's garage. It is a load of shite fished out of a skip and welded together.
Kieran, it's less Sergeant Bash, more Sergeant Gash.
Yeah, absolutely is. And the bit that got me just before they cut to break is that Sloan vaguely points at an area of it and goes, "The pyrotechnic charge should go in there somewhere." Yes, blow it up. That's the best thing for it. It's hideous. Thankfully, their entrance sets would get a bit better. So back from break, we get a shot of Leicester Square Station as bored voiceover man says, while Mark struggles to get the show together, LSR takes some of the team out to a London restaurant. Some of the team are himself, Jodie Fleisch, Vicky Demonfort, Schamberg, Angel, and Jodie's girlfriend. This is not a top London restaurant. This is a pretty average Chinese that I'm pretty sure I've been to.
They are all wearing black, and it all looks like LSR is leading them like they're a gang in Reservoir Dogs. That's what I've put down on this.
Oh, come on. They're not that cool.
No, it's like they're trying to be that cool. And then the conversation that we get to at the table is quite possibly some of the most interesting stuff.
It is. So Angel immediately starts talking about doing a lesbian angle on a show, quote, with fisting. Cracks appear in the Mr. and Mrs. Fleisch relationship when he's asked why he brings her to every show. And he says he doesn't, and she leaps in with, because he gets jealous and thinks all the guys will want her. Put a pin in this for a couple of episodes' time. We'll come back to this. Angel says she's not a ring rat. She says, "I'm here to wrestle, not to date," as she sits next to Schamberg, who she's dating. Jodie's lady then explains what a ring rat is, and this apparently got the FWA some major heat within the British wrestling industry. Like, people were not happy that this term became known to the public. Night of the show, and it is fucking hammering it down.
Kieran, my notes on this bit is the worst storm since Johnny arrived in Portsmouth.
I likened it to, do you remember the run from the pub to the Copper Box last year for the Rev Pro show? Yeah. Where we chose exactly the wrong moment to step outside those doors and just I got a cold from that.
And weren't it 2 minutes after fucking blazing hot sunshine?
Yeah.
I was at AFC Wimbledon watching football, and I saw that storm happen and then disappear.
And then all that happened 5 minutes later was a large queue of blokes under the hand dryer. Inside
the building, Mark goes over the booking of the Travell Richards main event finished with them, Linsky, and for some reason Jorge Castano, who's just appeared.
Linsky!
Eddie is celebrating.
Linsky!
Oh,
and he's
boy.
got hair.
Yeah. We see Justin and Paul go over a spot, and then an interview with Linsky, because of course he's going to get on camera. He says he knows where he's got to be and when, and I wrote, history will prove you to be a liar on many counts on that one line alone.
I was going to say, do you? Because in Blackburn, ...
I wasn't even talking about Blackburn.
I need to keep the gimmick up somehow.
Yes.
The GPS wasn't working that night.
Apparently not. No.
His excuse.
An interview with a fan, which is always a bad idea. This one is called Ashley, and he talks a load of shit. Annie Angel tells us how...
You've just buried him.
Yes. He was rambling.
He's definitely like one of those ones who was on forums at the time.
Yes.
And is like, well, actually, about the wrestling scene.
Yes.
It's like, fuck all me.
Annie Angel tells us how she used to tell people she liked wrestling because it was hunks in trunks rolling around rather than appreciating the drama and storytelling, because that was an easier explanation for normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Boring voiceover guy says, with no Shinjiro Otani, Mark has managed another surprise. 2 wrestlers from another federation. Cut to Flatliner and Dominator. Dom waves a barbed wire baseball bat around and talks about how they do the extreme blood and guts style of wrestling that will have the fans questioning if it's real or not. Can't have been that extreme. Their match ended in a disqualification. Flatliner boasts about how he's been wrestling sold-out shows alongside WWF stars like The Bushwhackers, Skinner, and Doink the Clown. And then he says, and now we're here and there's 50 people in the audience.
I don't know if you felt, I put it down on here about, Flatliner, but Dominator looks a bit like the hypnotist off Little Britain.
Look at the eyes, all around the eyes. I've put down that they look like the EWW guys look like they are nihilists or neo-Nazis. Dominator and Flatliner are burying the crowd at FWA.
Yep.
But then again, as we mentioned, FWA does get buried. They bury other companies, and then the EWW guys go, well, no, not for me. I worked with Skinner.
Yeah. Annie again. She says, what will my boyfriend think about me doing this? You could ask him, what do you think about me doing wrestling? And we whip pan to Schamberg, who with all his usual charisma goes, good for you. They have apparently been together a week at this point.
A week?
Yes.
One of my notes is Guy Thunder is a boring cock. Fuck me, how can he pull women?
I don't know.
Absolutely no personality at all.
So she is asked, how long has this been going on? And she replies, since last Sunday. She then talks about this. I love this. She talks about straight to her about how lovely he is and how he's not like a lot of the other wrestlers, while he is behind her making shagging motions and going, ring rat, ring rat.
Fucking, he's a twat, isn't he? Yeah. Absolute twat. And talking of twats, I loved Flatliner. I think he might have been next up going full sewer, very many skinny guy.
Yes, he talks about how half the FWA roster look like they come off the set of Grange Hill rather than looking like real wrestlers. And if you're wondering why Dominator disappeared after his one episode of Frontier Wrestling, this is exactly your answer. This is legitimately why they were not brought back.
Very shitty against the FWA.
This documentary pissed off a lot of people, yeah. Clips of Schamberg's match. Andy, do you know who his opponent is?
Oh, it's not Mad Dog McPhee, is it?
No. It is Joey Knight, one half of that Canadian tag team you fucking hated during their one UWA appearance, the All Nighters.
They were terrible. not Mad Dog McPhee terrible, but
pretty close, yeah.
Close.
I think that technically makes him the 18th UWA person we have seen during the run of this podcast.
UWA.
We get clips of the three-way match and the cat fight. Demon Thought apparently fell to the side, so Angel didn't know what to do. I don't know. Maybe do what you would actually do in that situation. She thinks the crowd liked it when she wrapped her legs around Vicky, though. She's very into the sexual element of this, isn't she? I mean, like, women in wrestling were much more highly sexualized at this time than they are today, for sure. Like, this is the era of, very much the era of, like, it's fine for Jerry Lawler to scream puppies, puppies over the headset every fucking Raw, you know.
You've still got Trish Stratus and Stacey Keebler in mud matches and gravy bottles. Yeah,
it's all of that shit that's just seen as normal. Yeah.
I mean, it was this time, wasn't it, more than anything? Which is a shame, but, you know.
It's one of the things I'm very glad has changed.
Yeah, I've also realised that, by the way, this show was on the same day as WCW Halloween Havoc 2000.
Was it now?
Fucking hell!
I don't reckon.
So you can either watch this
What's the
or a
better
main
show?
event of Goldberg versus Chronic in a 2-on-1 handicap elimination match.
I have seen that match. Is that the one where he smacks his head on the ring post and knocks himself out, or was that the rematch they did on Nitro?
It might be, yeah. I reviewed that show with Wilson. It's fucking
Bad memories being dug up.
Bad memories.
I'm just looking at this card. It is utterly horrific. And this is obviously because one of the things at the indie scene at this time, obviously.
I was going to say, are we talking about Halloween Havoc or are we talking about No Surprises 2?
Oh, No Surprises 2. I mean, obviously, listen, it's interesting that was happening at the same time. And obviously, it's trying to make its way in wrestling, whereas this WCW company is slowly dying at the same time.
We get clips of Mark Sloan versus Kev O'Neill, including Sloan putting Kev through a table with a flip dive. Clips of Justin Richards versus Paul Travell, including them running the same spot we saw them practice earlier, and the false finish they were discussing, except Linsky doesn't actually do what he was told to do.
Question before we get into Berry and Linsky. Who was Kev O'Neill?
He, so I believe Alan described him as like one of the unsung guys of early FWA. Legitimately, these clips in this documentary are all I've ever seen of him.
Right.
So I think he was much more involved early on and sort of disappeared once the Alex and Dino takeover started.
Yeah.
Right.
Now let's bury Linsky. He is told, you count 1, 2, 3, then you look up and you see that Justin has got his foot on the ropes and you wave it off. He actually counts 1, 2, 2.9, then looks and sees the foot. And so Travell has no reason to get up and go and grab the belt and celebrate because he hasn't heard a third count. Yeah. So Travell looks like a fucking idiot. The crowd goes dead, and then Travell is dragon suplexed and pinned immediately afterwards. So everybody looks stupid.
Well, I mean, we've talked about him enough. He's he's not good. He's not good. And, awful.
LSR is very pleased because this show was much smoother than last year's version, apparently. He was worried that the storm would keep people away, but happy that they turned up and the people that did turn up were quite hot. He is asked how many tickets were sold, and he's like, I have no idea. Richards and Travell backstage. Richards is not 100% happy with this match. He's like, we didn't gel well. Lots of stuff was forgotten. Like, while Travell is sat right there next to him. And Sloan says it's good to wrestle in Portsmouth because the children cheer for him, unlike the rest of the country, and that Portsmouth could well be the capital of British wrestling. Bollocks. And then over the credits, as Eddie alluded to earlier, we see the terrible double pin finish of the Mark Sloan versus Kev O'Neill match.
Why the fuck are you showing this at the ending in the credits? Why the fuck are you also having him have a draw in his hometown?
Yeah.
Like, what the actual fuck booking is this? Yeah. I mean, the entire card looks fucking dumb. Yep. Like, Kevin O'Neill is wrestling twice. There's a tables match with Scotty Rock and Jorge Castano. There's just...
Mark Sloan and Kev O'Neill did a table spot on a show that has a fucking tables match on it. So that match isn't special anymore.
The EWW heavyweight title match ended in DQ.
Yes.
And so not only have you got a DQ, a draw, and a tables match that's kindly ruined by a spot with a table, and then the main event finish is botched.
Yeah.
Like, and Ellis Cabrera is like a football manager going, I thought it ran smoother than it did before. Like, what the fuck are you on about?
The final image of the show comes after a brief brawl between O'Neill and Sloan, and it's Sloan taking a twist of fate from Kev O'Neill, who is dressed like a Dudley boy. This whole thing was scrappy and cheap, but like production like this was 10 a penny back at this time. I don't think anybody in this documentary comes off well. Every single person just looks like a sad loser trying to do an imitation of American wrestling.
I think the EWW guys come across as quite
Wise.
clearly, yeah, clearly only there for the paycheck and nothing more.
Very much so.
But there's like, I mean, Justin Richards tries to act, and I like Justin Richards. I want to be very clear on that. He just comes across as like trying to be a try hard at certain points, and he's like, and then when he's like, I didn't like the match, didn't like the finish, didn't gel well. It's like, what? Like, fucking hell, just don't fucking be like this. Just be normal.
What one thing I didn't notice on the credits anyway was camera assistant Melanie Price.
I don't think it's that one.
I was thinking like, bloody hell, she must have only been like fucking 18.
I don't think it's that one.
But yeah, I get what I think, it felt like for some kind of exposure on Channel 4. It was on Channel 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it works. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, the weather will probably put you off the wrestling and maybe the documentary by watching the weather. But yeah.
I was going to ask Kieran. I'm sure Channel 4 did another documentary, didn't they? Wasn't it with Jodie and Johnny?
I don't know. So what I do know is that there is another FWA documentary that was made in 2003 because it contains stuff from the British Breakout Tour that never got aired. I have seen it because Alex has a copy, and he showed it to me when I was at his place.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what it was called, and I'm pretty sure it's never surfaced anywhere. But I remember it's got Duke of Danger breaking his arm at the Ware show on that tour. It's got Chris Hamrick in it, who first arrived for that tour. It's as far as I'm aware, like Alex had the only copy, and it's never appeared anywhere.
Right.
I mean, so can I ask? Because there's the big elephant in the room. There's one guy who was missing from every part of this. I think you know who I'm alluding to. Where was he at this point? Where was Mr. Showstealer? Was he too busy kind of finding his own way?
No, Alex Shane was under contract to UCW. Where he played. Do you know about his UCW character?
No, but I'm now interested.
The naturally talkative and, let's say, in terms of British wrestling, charismatic Alex Shane was repackaged as a mute cyborg called LX Blade.
Fuck off.
Yep.
Fuck off.
And he was under an actual signed contract to, I think they were called Ultimate Championship Wrestling, UCW, run by Ross Hutchinson and Kenny McBride. He wasn't able to appear on FWA shows.
And he had no kind of interaction with any of the FW people up until this point, probably up until obviously.
Well, I imagine they talked. Wrestlers all talk to each other. Yeah, but no, like
not like he's a cyborg who's not allowed to talk to anyone at all. It's like
if only.
Kieran, did they have like a TV deal? Because a contract in British wrestling in 2000 sounds so
there
daft,
is an episode of Jesus Christ. Sorry, Eddie Syburn's turning to Eddie Kingston for a second. He's tilted his webcam down. I've just got a full view of his t-shirt. We got a special guest, brother. FWA, what the fuck's that? There is an episode of the podcast that Andy Quilden and Andy Simmons used to do, which is a long, I think it's a 2-part interview with Steve Linsky, and he goes into everything involving the UWA and how that fell apart and became, like, UCW was the spin-off from that and the contracts and stuff involved. I haven't listened to it for a very long time because it came out a few years ago. But like, if you want to find out about all of that, like, that's the place to go to listen to it. As much as I hate plugging anything that involves Steve Linsky, like that is where you should go to try and find that. Yeah,
funny you should mention it. World of Sport. But yeah, I've listened to it. I've listened, and I remember kind of talking bits about it. But it does feel like for the year 2000 to have a wrestling contract for a British company.
Wrestling is hot in 2000. Globally, wrestling is still on fire in 2000.
Yeah, but come on, World of Sport in this country, as far as actual British wrestling companies, there, you wouldn't really you'd be very surprised if someone went, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a signed wrestler for a UK wrestling company."
I know what you mean. It's the forever pipe dream.
Yeah, it's the 5-star wrestling pipe dream. It's the
it was an FWA pipe dream for a while. I sat at the side of conversations about full-time contracts for people.
It's the 5-star wrestling. It's the World of Sport pipe dream. It's numerous pipe dreams in terms of that.
Yep.
But this as I also realized that I think the New Breed were on this show. Yes. And I'm sorry, but why are we not don't get me wrong, and I know Andy Ogden's probably, trying to kill me through the camera at the moment, but come on, why are we not folks? They have some amount of charisma. They would be kind of good for this.
Yeah, but they don't fit the narrative. They're not the promoters. They're not from Portsmouth. They're not having a cat fight.
No, and it's very interesting because you've got this Graham guy who's then "Oh, I'm not sure how everything's going to be," and then you've got LSR going, "Oh, I think this was all great and this was all good," and then you've got Mark Sloan who's just "Well, at least the kids liked me and cheered for me," So
yeah,
very interesting three sides of this ownership.
Let's move on. A little bonus. This wasn't actually televised. This is a short documentary that LSR Cabrera made. It's called Talking Wrestling, which is just a little behind the scenes of the Talk Sports. I never know if it's called Talk Wrestling or Wrestle Talk because they call it both things, the radio show. Andy, am I right in thinking you listened to a lot of this when it was on?
Yeah, so I think I listened to every episode when it was on at the time. So I've got plenty of history with Talk Sports. I might have mentioned it on my own podcast, but I phoned up for a quiz on there for it was around the Sun Fantasy Football Dream Team,
right?
Where you have to phone up your fantasy football team, and they were doing a quiz on Talk Sport about different footballing questions. I thought, you know what, I'll send a text in. Don't know what will happen. I got the question right, and then I got a call off Talk Sport saying, "Do you want to come on to the radio show to do a quiz with it was Gabrielle Marcotti and Adrian Durham, who's a bit of a twat." And I ended up getting I think the top score as well. I think it was 30 out of 30. So it was 5 points in answer or 3 points in answer, and I got the full marks. And this were at the time where you could. I was taping it as well on my Skybox, so I had a recording of it. And so I said on the first time I was on, you've won and everything, and. Yeah, no, I said, I'm single and a virgin or something on the radio. He said, I think Adrian Durham said, "Well, you might have not won much in life, but you've won tonight." And what have you. So you're through to the final on Friday. So it comes to the final on the Friday, and I ended up losing on a tiebreaker to a Scouser. And it was on how many career appearances had Alan Shearer made in his career. And I had first go at it. And I was thinking, he's had so many injuries, and all the Scouser had to do was go higher or lower.
Right, okay.
Like one of my games.
Yeah.
I can't believe that Scouser stole it from you.
Well, yeah.
What the fuck? That's racist.
And the prizes, lads, was a year's free subscription to Sky, a 50-inch telly, and a page-free mug full of tits. So all I ended up with, Kieran, 6 months after, was the page-free mug of just pictures of tits. And I taped it as well on telly. That's it. So that's my claim to fame. So I have been on top.
Amazing. And you're a wrestling fan, so you get to be around a load of tits all the time. Our host for this documentary is, of course, the show stealer, Alex Shane, who shows us around the studio. He explains the show. We see clips of Jake Roberts and Jodie Fleisch on the show. Alex is also, this is post Tommy Boyd. So Tommy Boyd was given the flick after he didn't dump a caller who made some comments about the Queen Mother on the day the Queen Mother had died. And so he was kicked out, and Alex became the full-time host of the Talk Wrestling show.
Kieran, to him in notes is Alex Shane talking as ever, like he's in promo mode.
Of course.
Was Jake Roberts paid in a Ranger boom?
Jake Roberts being there, apparently he did a really good shoot interview, like live on TalkSport, and that was, and so this would have been shot at summer 2002.
So would you been pissed by this point? I kind of said, well, yeah. So like, so far on my notes on this, because this was very short, it was like only about 4 minutes.
7.
7. Nice polo shirt from the show sailor. The Talk Sport, listen to the whistle, which is again.
No, it's not
like
even Talk Sport. It's not even Talk Sport. It's Ralph doing a crap American accent, and he says Talk Spot. It drove me up the fucking wall every time.
We are the old school.
It's largely the same track. Yeah. In fact, Alex talks about the music they play on the show and says some people, rather than buy the official FWA music CD, tape the theme tunes off the radio. He says
he's completely okay with pirates.
He says if that means they're listening to the show, it's fine by him. And I'm sure Ralph would have been fucking thrilled about that.
Imagine watching that back and realizing that one of your main stars is like, well, I'm okay with pirating as long as you're listening to my show.
Yeah.
One of the people like in I think they show him on the 7-minute documentaries, Simon Lil's boy,
Mr. Rothstein.
He works with like newspapers, and I think he still works with like TNA.
I think he's the UK kind of. Yeah, I think from what I remember, I think he's the UK kind of like person they deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to see him. He does like communication, so I think he was doing that with TNA. But like,
because
they were interesting to see him here.
They were like him and another lad. I don't know if he's
there was another Lil's boy. I can never remember what that guy was called. Like Simon was. I think Simon was the one I've met of the two of them. He says he likes callers that ring up and challenge them, and also likes casual fans who just ring in and ask what the Ultimate Warrior's up to. We see Nikita and Dean Ayers in the studio. Nikita talks about the kinds of emails she has to read out, including the odd marriage proposal. The email segment was always run by a woman, and it was called Email the Female.
I think on one of the programs I watch on bloody Channel 4 in the 90s and 2000s was the morning line, which was horse racing, and they'd always have I think she was called the Email Female, Tanya. But Nikita's delivery here. Hi, I'm Nikita.
Yeah.
Emails.
Nikita.
It is such a shame because I've mentioned this before. She is legitimately one of the nicest people I've ever met in wrestling. But she just cannot project a personality. I think she got better later on. Like once she became Winter later on, like she perhaps had some acting classes and was able to like do something. But like we've seen it in like when she was introduced, like those segments where she was introduced. We've seen her introduced twice, Sandy. We've seen her introduced in fucking Transatlantic Wrestling Challenge and FWA, and she doesn't have like a natural charisma. She's not able to project. She is
it's a shame because her character, it's very akin. I know it's sort of portraying like their version of say like a Lita sort of thing, but if she added more like a bit more charisma to her talking, it's on that sort of coolness level, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people were a bit dazzled because at the time nobody looked like her in British wrestling. Like she's
it was all Klondike Kate, weren't it? And
pretty much, yes. Like she's a very good-looking woman. She became a decent wrestler. She was just unfortunately never able to talk. I felt so sad when she was just like trying to do this into the camera. Look, she clearly didn't want to have to talk to this camera.
She was like the UK's version of Lita, I would say, in essence, with some of the, in terms of the kind of in-ring style and things
a little
like
bit.
that.
Like less sloppy and better. She was definitely less high spotty and better at actual wrestling.
Yeah,
which is something we'll see going along. And she, like, in style of, if people have never seen her, like in terms of image, she's not as like alt skater girl as Lita is by any stretch. Like there isn't, I don't think there really is anybody like from the US you can compare her to in around that same time, because she's not a Trish character, she's not a Lita character, she's not a Stacy Keibler character, she's not a Tori Wilson
she's
character.
Not Ivory, Molly.
No,
Holly,
exactly. See,
like that, you know,
yeah,
which
is good. Yeah. Like she's her own thing. She's just, unfortunately, not a very interesting interview.
I put in this. Did Elisar definitely try and ask Jake to maybe be interviewed in this? Or
I don't know.
A small spot on it. And then I put, is this Jake the Snake era when he was very pissed up?
Quite possibly.
And he was just kind of living around the UK.
Yeah. He used to live in
There's a
Albans.
there's a Big Daddy and Giant Haystack reference at one point here as well. And then there's a line which I'm going to mention where Shane is talking about comparing wrestlers from here to America.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, oh.
We very quickly see Jane Childs as the call screener. Daniel from Boreham Wood is up next. And then Alex flat out admits they use the show as a way to push FWA storylines because they don't have a national TV show, but he is on the radio every Saturday night and can push his promotion. He credits the show with boosting British wrestling and like what it did to sell out Revival and what that in turn did for the exposure of people like Doug Williams, Jodie Fleisch and Johnny Storm, who are now getting international bookings. And also thinks, as Eddie kind of mentioned, that the public hearing British guys' names in the same breath as stars like Steve Austin elevates them and makes the public see them as people worth paying to see. And you can say that, but I guarantee you, every poster for every British wrestling event in 2002 just had wrestling in big letters at the top and not the names Hayde Vanson, Alex Shane, Johnny Storm, Jodie Fleisch on it. It had pictures of wrestlers and the word wrestling, possibly with the word American in front of it, to try and sell the show.
To be honest, Kieran, Scotty Rock could have done a good impression of Steve Austin. And
no, he's just incompetent, remember?
Well,
he's the other ball guy.
No, but if he had a night off from just incompetent and they needed a Steve Austin.
Lukewarm Steve Austin,
that fake WWF that would go around the UK, they just get him to kind of mix in each night. One night he's just an incredible, and the other night he's Steve Austin. Hayde Vanson, though, like that's just such a name to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, so
the story of Hayde.
He had only debuted like a few months prior. He was someone they were going to try and get behind, you know, and build up and push as like one of their own guys. And he was Alex's mate, so like I understand why that was the name he dropped. And we finish off with Nikita telling us how to email the show, and Alex tells us how to listen to it, and then Tokspot, the theme tune, kicks in again and roll credits. Just like a fun little behind the scenes thing for people who are already FWA fans. And I think this was put on one of the TV tapes they sold at the shows as like an extra. But yeah, I just threw it in because it's kind of fit with the documentaries, etc. we're talking about today.
I will say Alex Shane he's probably suited as a radio presenter for TalkSport.
Yeah, I guess, because you can't see him and he has to stick to time.
Yeah, he's very engaging, talks shite, tries to play like, you know, good and evil sort of thing. Yeah, no, he's probably well suited to that sphere.
I will say, I thought for a non-professional production, and I know Elitar is a filmmaker, this looked miles better than that fucking On the Ropes thing.
Yeah.
A minor diversion before our main event. Dirty Sanchez.
Oh.
So, quickly for people who don't know, Dirty Sanchez was essentially British Jackass. It was a bunch of Welsh lads doing daft stunts and having horrible things done to them. It was an MTV UK original production, and apparently the only MTV UK produced show to ever air on the US MTV. One of the things they did in season 1 was wrestling related, an FWA show. 2 fun facts about this. This show was FWA Hotwired 2002 in Ware, Hertfordshire. The final show before the first British uprising. This was the first show that I was a cameraman on in British wrestling.
Oh, I've got to say your camera work, Kieran, was dreadful.
They didn't use our stuff. So we, one of the things LSR had to do after the show...
Way to bury the host there.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine. You've got like a year of doing it once we get around to the stuff I actually made. So one of the things LSR had to do immediately after the show was copy our tapes. So there were 3 cameras running. 2 or 3 cameras running? Maybe only 2. Had to copy the segment from our tapes to give to MTV so they could potentially use it in the show. And I don't think they use 1 second of it. You can very briefly and very blurrily see me in what is aired.
Would that have been MTV's choice?
Yes.
Just like...
Yeah. There's probably a rights issue with it as well.
Right.
I cannot remember like how many cameras MTV themselves had at the thing. From the way it was edited, it looked like at least 3 or 4. But like I said, I don't like. This is 22 years ago. I don't remember. Yeah. The second fun fact linked to all this is a friend of a friend directed all of Dirty Sanchez, including the movie under an assumed name. Apart from season 1 that this is part of, which was directed by someone else.
Jesus.
So, I mean, this thing goes 95 seconds. It's a tiny segment from an episode.
Is this? I was going to say, is this like the typical speed of their segments? Because, like,
I don't know.
So quick.
It was also edited so fast. Like, there are so many cuts in this. Like, if you think Kevin Dunn is bad, like this is Kevin Dunn after a line of coke. These boyos have very thick Welsh accents, so it took me a couple of goes to get everything they were saying. I mean, most of what they say is erg and ow, but we start in the locker room. One of them is boasting about how he gets to sit this one out and says, it's all a setup anyway. And one of them goes, oh, it's a setup, is it? Immediately cut to Flash Barker chopping the fuck out of the first guy.
Flash Barker going full Dr. David Schultz.
Yeah. So they
he doesn't miss. He's found out that one of them is shit in his bag, and he's like, "Oh, you're all fucking killed here."
They put on some silly outfits and come to the ring and say over the mic that they think wrestlers are a bunch of pussies. Cue Flash speeding down the aisle in his Maxi Muscle shirt. Got to get that sponsor on the telly. They give him a shoeing as he comes through the ropes, but he, of course, batters them. Chops, dropkick, Michinoku driver, chair shot to the head, and the part that I didn't need to see again and has stuck with me for 22 years. It's difficult to see in how it's edited, but the guy in the gimp suit went the wrong way for Flash in the pan and almost broke his fucking neck right in front of me that night.
Oh, yeah.
It's so evil. Like, I don't even have to watch this. Like, there are times when I have just closed my eyes and that image has appeared in front of me. Don't know why they picked Flash. He was a heel at the time. Maybe he was like, they went, we want the hardest bloke, and they decided he was the hardest one.
Well, he was like a judo master, weren't he?
Oh, I can't remember what his martial art is. No.
Judo.
No, Doug Williams is the one who knows his judo well. I can't remember. Flash was karate.
Karate.
Absolutely. Yeah, minute and a half, Welsh blokes getting beaten up. Any salient comments?
Wales get battered everywhere they go. Wales get battered everywhere.
Yeah, this was just, it went by way too quickly, and then obviously they were like, yeah, okay, so let's quickly go on with this, you know?
Yeah.
Be good for another way of, because MTV would have been on Sky by this point, so it would have been quite an interesting audience to reach to.
Yeah, I guess so. And so, to our main event, Fort Boyard, the FWA episode. So, if anybody's unaware, Fort Boyard was a French-created team adventure game show. I think the teams were usually celebrities. Set on, shot on, and named after a real island fort off the west coast of France that took 56 years to build. It was started in 1801 and finished in 1857. So more than half of the 19th century it took to build this thing.
I know builders take the piss. Fuck me.
I mean, just imagine him knocking on the door again, just going, it's going to take, now we need a bit more money here.
Yeah.
Pal. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Bloody hell, you've got to get Dom Littlewood onto there, man.
As for the show, the concept for an English version of The Keys of Fort Boyard, as it's called in France, was originally bought by Channel 4 in 1989, and they shot a pilot that has never aired but found its way online, starring Richard O'Brien as a dungeon master type character. The fort itself, at the time, was undergoing renovations and the construction required for the show, so the production company took the set designs and rebuilt about a quarter of the island at Elstree Studios at a cost of what was then 2 million French francs, which seems to be about £300,000 in 1990 and would be £750,000 today just to build the sets. Well, so Channel 4 had commissioned the series for a full run, but they wanted to make so many changes to it, the French said, fuck off. The French production company said, no, we can't make changes for every country that wants to come and film their versions on the island. You stick to our format or you don't do it. It's that simple. So the head of the UK production company and the head of the French production company had a meeting to thrash out an alternative format that would stick within the terms of the agreements they had signed and also keep Channel 4 happy. And in 2 days, they developed The Crystal Maze, which ended up airing 5 months before the first episode of Fort Boyard aired in France.
When I was messaging yourself and Eddie the other night about this, and I was like, coming to the end of it, I was like, all this show needs is a big giant crystal maze at the end, because I had no clue about this.
Yeah.
And you said, wait till I tell you about the correlation between these two. And then I looked at Wikipedia, I was like, fucking hell.
It's crazy, isn't it? So the UK version of Fort Boyard ran for 5 seasons after Channel 5 bought the format, and they aired the first 4 from 1998 to 2001. Cable and satellite quiz and game show Challenged then bought the format for 1 more season in 2003, and that is where this FWA episode comes from. I believe that this originally aired in November 2003. The Channel 5 seasons were presented by TV host and former model Melinda Messenger, with the character of the Professor, who was a scientist driven insane by his imprisonment on the fort, played by Geoffrey Bayldon, who very old British people may remember better as the TV character Catweasel. No, not the rest of the same name. You two need to stop. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, but it relates to something we're going to talk about in a second. So the Professor character would present the contestants with more cerebral riddle-based challenges as a break from the main physical ones. And then the character of Boyard himself was played by EastEnders legend, webcam masturbator and legitimate convicted murderer Leslie Grantham.
Dirty Den by name, Dirty Den by nature.
Absolutely. Then for the challenge season, Messenger was replaced by Jodie Penfold, who appears to have done nothing before or since, and who throughout this episode, her mic pack seemed to be in constant danger of just tearing her skirt off at any moment as they ran around the building.
I will say about Jodie Penfold, so I did look into her career, her backstory. So she used to present Channel 5's Milkshake.
I remember that.
Right.
The sort of like
a kids show?
CITV.
It's like the CITV in the morning, but for Channel 5.
Yeah, it's the links between all the cartoons they've bought from the US, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
She would, 30 years before that, she'd have been, or less than that, she'd have been in a broom cupboard with Gordon the Gopher.
Yeah, so it was all the stuff like Noddy and Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
And she also looked like a double.
And shouted.
She also looked like, I would say, looked like a double for Helen Chamberlain as well with her.
As was the style at the time.
It was like they really were like, okay, so we've lost Melinda, so we kind of need to get exact for so it's like, okay, let's find someone.
And then The Professor was replaced by the Captain, played by former Doctor Who and legitimate lunatic Tom Baker.
Absolutely. You know what? It's a bigger star, that.
It is.
Yeah.
So, like, the Professor would have been Fort Boyard's version of, like, Mumsy on...
Yeah, I guess so, but I don't know if it happened in later series. Like Mumsy was like a never seen character for a lot of Crystal Maze. I don't know if like later on she appeared, because like much like with wrestling, I'm generally not interested in all the character bollocks. I want to see what the people are actually doing.
Yeah.
I've had one encounter with Tom Baker. I was in London many, many years ago, and it started hammering down with rain, and I ran under the awning of the Prince Charles Cinema, that Eddie mentioned before we went on the air. And this bloke ran in after me, and his phone rang, and he took a call, and this voice went, yes, I'm in London. It's fucking pissing down. Turned around, and it was Tom Baker. That was his normal speaking voice.
But it's like, that's like a major upgrade. I'm sorry, from the original guy, which is like great. And then you've got Dirty Dan.
Well, I think this is an upgrade as well. The Boyard character seems to remain the same. However, it is now played by Christopher Ellison, probably the best known as the best character in the pre-soap version of the cop show The Bill, DCI Frank Burnside.
They pulled this out of the bag, didn't they?
He's I remember when I first saw him on The Bill, and it was really confusing and slightly scary to me, because he was playing a cop, and it was clear like that character wasn't on the level. Like you know that Burnside was like the one who did all the shady dealings.
Yeah.
But Ellison had also played the villain in some sort of like educational adventure TV program I had watched in school. It was like, it was like a bunch of kids find out there's some dodgy shit going on at a circus or whatever, and one of the lead villain was played by Chris Ellison, and like I always associated like that with the Burnside character as well when I was a kid.
The only like TV shows I saw in like primary school was like Superted. Was this like Superted After Dark?
Was he on Superted?
I don't know, or Banana Man or something like that.
I remember him from Dream Team. He was in like 2 episodes of Dream Team.
No.
But like honestly, like does Boyard is Boyard like Doctor Who? Does he regenerate? So was there a moment where like on set where Leslie Grampham regenerated into Christopher Ellison?
Once Leslie Grampham put his finger in his gob, he regenerated into Burnside. Was that why Grampham was because do we ever find out why Grampham left the role and was replaced by Ellison? Was it due to that?
Oh, I mean, so like I imagine Challenge didn't want to pay him. Like so Challenge is a much lower budget TV station than even Channel 5.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because a Challenge would have just been a lot of repeats and to get his castle, wouldn't it? And TNA.
I am trying to find whatever this thing was called.
But
Running Scared. I think it was Running Scared.
On a quick note, just to go back to because this is a long way away, and I've said it, Andy. So the FWA unit is the one that is just beside the Rev Pro one. I've found a thing from like 2006. Where they were gonna like have a bunch of Americans come, and it's called the Ultimate Training Camp, and the address is kind of like when I put 2 and 2 together, it's the one right beside the Rev Pro one. So maybe Mark Sloan just still didn't want to sell it, and it's still with like the Matrix DVD and stuff like that was stuck in his shop.
Andy Quilled and not through. You can do better than that, Mark Sloan.
I wanted to ask you two, how much, if any, Fort Boyard had you two seen before?
I'd watched quite a bit of Fort Boyard.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember it, obviously from like back in the day, but watching, especially this episode, it's like fucking hell. It wasn't a bad series. It's like I'm not. I was wondering why Channel 5 just didn't keep on with it and what have you.
Everything's the answer to all your questions in film and TV are always money.
Yeah.
Which means it probably wasn't delivering whatever ratings it was supposed to, so they couldn't sell enough ads, and so
well,
it goes in the bin.
The thing is with Channel 5, the ratings, what they were getting...
Yeah, but you grade on a scale, you know?
Very, very, very small, isn't it? Like...
Yeah,
a lot of what Channel 5 did back in the early days was like Family Affairs, Jack Doherty and Nancy Lamb, weren't it? They were the
if you think about ratings in terms of how people talk about AEW ratings now versus WCW ratings or whatever, like it's not about what they are in the wider landscape of television. It's about what the TV station are happy with. So AEW's ratings might look like shit to an outsider, but for their slot on TBS, it's fucking brilliant. You know, like that's kind of how it works. Eddie, had you ever seen any Fort Boyard before?
Oh, so here we go. Sorry, guys. So, I was born in 1993, so this would have, when this came out, I would have been 5 or 6 years old.
When it started. Okay.
But so the thing is, I remember seeing stuff about it. I remember vividly watching Gladiators at my grand's house and stuff like that, and I remember that this was kind of on roughly about the same time. I think there was some difference. I can't remember. Obviously,
Friday nights they said Fort Boyard.
Yeah, Gladiators. Like that initial run of Gladiators ran into 2000 or 2001, I think. So yeah, that.
So I would have remembered kind of on the odd occasion Channel 5 being on and watching this and going, oh look, a nice, you know, this is a big fort in France. And then there's this guy, and there's like a guy who's doing riddles and stuff. But yeah, like. And as I've grown up, kind of watched back and looked at a couple of things and stuff like that, because I think like there's a celebrity episode where Frank Bruno's in it, and I was like, well, of course I'm going to watch that because that just sounds great. I hope they put him, you know, like Frank Bruno on this, the celebrity versions, and I've looked back as well to see what the kind of casts were and stuff like that, and like the celebrity version in 1999 was Frank Bruno, Samuel Cain, Glenda McKay, Gabby Logan, and Sharon Davies.
Fucking hell.
And then there's one where I'm pretty sure they did like a one with like and then obviously the FWA one shows up in the Wikipedia, and then like it's just very interesting. But I've watched some of it now as an older person, as growing up, I've seen stuff on YouTube as an older person, and when I think during lockdown, when I was working from home at certain points, I would put on either Gladiators or find an episode of Fort Boyard and watch kind of a couple of episodes. So,
interesting.
But I did never watch this one. I left it to this one, so I was like, but I didn't want to take too many notes on it, so I just kind of vibed with
fine.
it.
That's fine. That's my role here. This is the only episode I've ever seen.
Okay.
But when this particular episode aired, I would have been 24 years old. And I didn't watch it until 2 weeks ago.
I was finishing watching it yesterday and today, so I kind of did two viewings of it.
Yes, I watched it twice as well. Like one just to see it through as a program, then one to take notes.
It does feel like it's on the tail end of the show.
Yeah.
It feels like it's for the British version, especially when it's like you can't get. It's like when you watch these shows and it's like, okay, you have the big stars to begin with, and you had the big budget, and you had, you know, the good ratings, and then obviously you've moved channels, so you're now getting, you know, like second-hand Melinda Messenger. Yeah, but then you're doing kind of you've got a cut price Melinda, but then you've got like a on the level good version of Boyard, and then you've still got Tom Baker, who must have been earning a mint during this. But and this show is still going.
Oh yeah, in France, it's in season 30.
Fucking hell.
And it's been sold to loads of other territories.
And guess who's still in it? Jack.
It's been sold to territories like Ogdenville, North Haverbrook.
And it's like God, it's put them right on the map. But Jack is still going.
So yes, Jack is one of the 2 or 3 dwarves in this show, all of whom were French, and all of whom I do believe appear in every country's version of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So for this episode, our FWA team is Captain Doug Williams, James Ty, Paul Burchill, Nikita, and because in 2003 they didn't have any other women, Sweet Soraya. If you're interested, Sweet Soraya wrestled a grand total of 2 matches for the FWA in her whole career, one in 2002 and one in 2004. So she wasn't even a member of the roster at this point. The format of the show is the team have 40 minutes to beat as many challenges as it takes to win 5 keys that open the door to a treasure room. Then, with whatever time they have left, they have to get 5 clue words that point to a code word that they need to spell out by putting cannonballs on letters on the ground that will open the vault so they can then grab as many gold coins as they can. They weigh the gold, that gets converted into their local currency, and that is their prize, I believe, for charity, although that is not mentioned on this episode.
The charity being Alex Shade.
Alex Billing Enterprises
In my
Limited.
pocket show.
Yeah. So the first challenge sees James, who Penfold keeps calling Paul, and they don't bother doing a retake. So that might be what Eddie was alluding to with this is near the tail end of the show, tail end of the run.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck. So James, Ty and Nikita have to work together on some wacky mechanism to transport water across a broken gutter into a container that will raise the key up. This was very clearly an excuse to get the already barely dressed Nikita soaking fucking wet 5 minutes into
That
the show.
slow-mo. That
Kieran,
slow-mo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did put on my notes. The point of this task was for Nikita to just get very wet for all the dirty men and Burnside watching on.
Yes.
So
They've done that clear because the slow mo they show once they're doing it with a what is like you fucking dirty bastards challenge.
She basically had to stand on what was effectively like a lacquered log with her arms above her head holding these 2 pieces of piping together so the water that James is pumping can flow across into the container. The highlight of this whole thing is where she gets her first drenching, slips off the log and very clearly says, fucking hell, and they dip her mic out. Outside, Soraya is pissing herself at Kat getting soaked. They actually managed to challenge fairly easily, but Jesus Christ, do you ever have to be shaped like James Ty to turn that wheel thing he's turning? That looked like mission. All of these physical challenges are super physical, the stuff they have to do. I mean, you two might be better placed to answer this than I am, because this is the only episode I've ever seen. Firstly, were the contestants generally quite athletic types? And secondly, were the challenges scaled up in this episode because they were wrestlers in terms of the physicality, or would like normals had to do this same thing?
I think normals would have to do the same thing, but I think as we see with one of the challenges after, especially with Burchill trying to push against the wall.
What the fuck's he doing? It's like Doug Williams is shouting consistently, do that, use your neck, and he's just not fucking listening.
Yeah. I
would say it was one of those use your neck, but I've got a neck like Sandi Toksvig. It's not happening. And all I was thinking, I know we'll get into it, but all I could think with Burchill on his first task was, DNA ass ain't gonna be happy. You're ruining the gimmick here. You're a killer. You're like our big star. And
so
fucking you can't push fucking 160 pounds of Frenchman around.
So they do keep talking about what a big guy Burchill is, but what struck me, the size of Doug's shoulders and chest on this show.
Yeah.
He's huge.
The thing is, they're all very similar hairdos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They basically look like Russian dolls or Dad and Two Sons, don't they?
Yeah, you know, like the main star of Small Soldiers. They all look like that.
Yeah, they kind of do. So Doug gets sent off to see Captain Tom Baker, and Soraya gets strapped into a safety harness so she can do some Assassin's Creed / Spider-Man climb around the outer wall of the fort over the sea.
It One of my notes here, Kieran, about Soraya scaling the castle wall. I put many folk wishing that they'd cut that rope. But
words of Jeff Ogden.
It's so weird seeing her as a blonde, though. It's so weird seeing her as a blonde.
Yes. All I will say is this is the youngest I've ever seen her look.
Yeah.
What? I did put as well, like, bloody hell, she's 31 here.
Yep.
And I think I did mention to you, Kieran, that 31, but bloody hell, having many kids and kissing Jeff as aged.
I think that the challenge is I don't think there was much of a difference in terms of like compared to different people and stuff like that. They might try and make it a little bit harder, but they still want to kind of have everyone getting an even kind of playing field.
I was wondering if, like, so for example, that wheel you see Ty turning, if like they would have, because he was a muscular guy, like they changed the tension on it to make it harder. Whereas like if it's, you know, a fucking accountant from Grimsby, like they might loosen it off a bit to make it like the same, a similar level. Yeah. So Soraya,
Doug is useless, by the way, during that Tom Baker thing. By the way,
we'll get to a lot of this stuff. Soraya quite easily climbs around the outside of this building, grabs the key out of a little cage, and climbs back. Doug gets to the top of the tower where Tom Baker tells a nonsensical story and then tells him he has to guess a word from a riddle to get a key.
Do you think here, Kieran, that Tom Baker is a good promo?
Would you like to see him as a wrestling manager? I don't think he could stick to a script. He would not get the point across that he was told to make, I'm sure.
Do you think he's very, I don't know, he's just very centric in his...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. He's an absolute fruitcake. So here the riddle is, this has no beginning or even an end. You'd swap it with a lover or maybe a friend. The answer is not saliva, it's a ring. Doug just looks confused, doesn't get the answer, and we go to a break.
He doesn't even say a thing. He just goes, oh.
No, I know. Back from break, it's time for a virtual challenge. You don't look like a special needs teacher, says Ellison. He was indeed a primary school special needs teacher.
He brings this up to a free
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. The other fun fact about Birchall is around this time he drove a Renault 5. They are very small. Can you imagine a man the size of Paul Birchall getting into and out of a Renault 5?
It's that Simpsons thing, in it, with the very tall man. Are you laughing at the car I'm driving?
So, two things. There was an FWA show where they wanted a shot of Birchall and Dean Ayers arriving at the building. It was the car park of Broxbourne Civic Hall. Dean hadn't driven there, and Paul had come in his Renault 5, and they were like, we cannot show these two getting out of that car. So we got the keys to Barry Charalambous' gigantic Jeep Grand Cherokee and shot them getting out of that instead.
Is he that thing from like Dynamite, where Will Ospreay's
fucking hell! I almost switched the show off.
Can I borrow your car, Alex Marvez? And
yes.
He's got a big fucking Hummer.
Yeah. And the other thing is, before Paul Birchall left for WWE, I put together his demo tape. At that time, like you wouldn't just edit video and send it across the internet. Like there was no publicly accessible YouTube or anything like that.
I hope you did a video of him to fucking I am driving in my car.
No. No, it was like wrestling clips, promo clips, that kind of thing. And I had to actually lay it off to a VHS tape. And while I was doing that, he was downstairs and I came downstairs to find him crammed into one of our armchairs, talking very politely with my girlfriend at the time about their favourite herbal teas.
I mean, Birchall does seem like the most kind of like he seems like just a really genuinely nice guy.
He is. He's a lovely dude. So his challenge.
He's where is he now? NWA or something?
Yeah, he's resurfaced recently in NWA. So obviously he went off to WWE, became Pirate Paul Birchall. He famously fucked his knee doing his rope entrance for the very first time. I believe it wasn't even in front of a live crowd. It was the practice, and he just didn't tell anybody. So worked on like a torn, blown out knee for however long. He came back as Ripper Paul Burchill for WWE CW for a bit. And then I do believe...
who did he want to fuck? Who did he want to fuck? Is either Ripper Paul Burchill or what was it?
Well, the original plan was he and Nikita as the incestuous Burchill siblings. She was Katie Lee Burchill, and the idea was that they wanted to do each other, and that was scrapped very quickly. I believe he got married, had a couple of kids, and was a fireman for a long time, and has recently resurfaced in Smashing Billy's NWA.
When you said he famously fucked, I thought you were going to say he famously wanted to fuck his sister.
Not quite. So
yeah, he seems like a nice guy, and being, the special needs, like that's really, and it's it's a bit weird that Burnside just focuses on saying special needs.
But that's an interesting fact about this gigantic man, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this challenge he has to do, as we've mentioned, is he has to push this like capstan against a sort of I put muscly pirate fella. Oh, the irony. The more Paul pushes, the more the key will rise to the surface of its container, and so he can grab it. And if it goes the pirate's way, it goes the other way. Doug, yes, is giving handy advice to the door. Under your neck, mate, like a squat. Burchill does not listen to a word of this and fails. There is a glorious moment near the beginning where he gets his first push, and it looks like he is going to fucking bulldoze this bloke and basically shoot him out of the door, and he can't do it. He gets the technique wrong from the start, tries all sorts of different things. He gets really close, but Jesus Christ, how strong is that other guy? Next challenge. Line of the show from Boyard. Soraya, I hear you're a bit of a rat in the ring.
Oh, I was on the floor when I heard that.
She immediately protests. She's like, no, you don't use that term around wrestlers. You don't.
Who wised him up?
I will say the first time I heard that term was in Preston. So, like years after. One thing I will point out about Burnside, he must have stunk in his black attire.
I don't think any of them smell good, like, herring around that thing in the sun. So the challenge is Soraya and James have to work together. She is in a small cage with kind of like two parallel bars with handles at the ends underneath. Kind of like a sedan chair, except there's not two carriers, there's only James Ty. This whole thing is in a tower with stoppers preventing it from moving up or down. She has to pull the stoppers out, and he has to lift the thing one end at a time to get it up the tower while she replaces the stoppers each time to stop it falling. I will happily accept anybody who has a better explanation than that for this complicated game.
All I could hear during this portion of the show was, get out the cage. Get out the fucking... move your legs. Go on, just put your legs under there. Get out the cage. From fucking Jodie Penfold. Oh, crumbs, DM.
Yeah. So, the other thing is, on top of this cage, there is a box of rats that she has to put her hand through when they reach the top so she can grab the key. Penfold has done her basic heavy lifting training, and she says if he bends his knees, he won't hurt himself. Like a fucking wrestler has never lifted anything before. So they do it. They get to the top. She grabs the key, but they're under time pressures, and when she jumps out of the cage, she drops the key, and it doesn't count. As her punishment / reward, she gets sent off to see Tom Baker. And Paul and Doug are sent in to do some crazy thing where they have to work together to use giant chopsticks to try and transport very easily breakable vases across a set that looks like a Chinese shop with loads of stuff for them to get caught on and drop these things into baskets. I'm telling you, when you see it on screen, all of these challenges, like your brain immediately goes, oh yeah, that's what it is. Try explaining these to anybody who hasn't seen it.
The amount of vases that just got broken because I think Doug just...
If I was moving house the week after this, I would not call these two. The amount of shit they break is like...
If you're watching this show, lads, like, you're thinking, How are these fuckers remembering spots in the ring?
They caused more destruction than Chris Jericho putting Samoa Joe on a forklift and driving him through a wall. They just wrecked this place. They managed 2 out of 3 vases, and then they have to get out because time's running out. Neither rich nor poor, I go after a beggar man. Tom Baker asks Sweet Soraya. She correctly guesses thief and wins a key, and also charms a kiss out of Captain Baker. So if you had Julia Knight successfully flirting with Doctor Who on your bingo card, feel free to cross that square off.
Well, I've got to say, Tom Baker didn't go grabbing her ass like I had yet, so he survived.
Yeah. Baker very clearly also throws to a break, but we just carry on with the show anyway.
Well, it's like, who cares? We'll just carry on anyway.
Yeah. Next challenge is a solo Doug Williams challenge. He has a rope and pulley through a window to yank up a net bag containing 3 cannonballs that is hanging just outside the fort with the key attached to it. And I noticed on my second viewing, there is also a second bag of 5 cannonballs further underneath. So this thing must have weighed a ton. He gets very close. Like, this looked really difficult. He gets very close, but he has to come out before the time runs out.
This Birchill.
This was Doug.
Oh, Doug, sorry.
Yeah.
I've got down for the next challenge, I think, yeah.
How many keys did they have by this point?
Only 2, I do believe. Oh, no, 3, because Soraya got the one for guessing the riddle.
Yeah, and Soraya's got 2 of them, and then the other one is the original one Nikita got.
Yes. Physical challenge number 6 sees Nikita given a 3-foot tube to transport an amount of water through an obstacle course 3 times to fill up a container and release the key.
Nikita and water again. I think producers loved a bit of a wet Nikita, didn't they?
Another insight into the time. Penfold giggles into the camera. She's gorgeous. I bet there's a lot of guys who want to get in the ring with her. I'll tell you that. She fucking smashes this challenge. Everybody outside's going, get out. You haven't got enough time left. Get out. She just concentrates and blasts through it. Powers through.
A very tight space what she were working in.
This wasn't easy at all. I say obstacle course, but it's things like she basically has to like crawl through this like tight space. Yeah, she's like fucking Bruce Willis in Die Hard if he had to transport 3 foot of water through the air vents as well. And like these things she has to step over, and like there's all these various things around her. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Like I think she comes out as like the most capable member of the team on this show. She, in particular, makes Birchill look like a proper fucking loser.
Yeah.
So at this point, they have 4 keys, and only 4 keys. So one team member needs to be sacrificed to gain the last one. And so Doug volunteers himself and gets locked in a dungeon by a French dwarf. Yes, that's the thing that happened.
Jack the Door.
Paul gets sent up to Captain Baker, and the rest of them now have 12 minutes to collect the clue words to unlock the keyword. Yes, this show is as complicated as it sounds. Boyard says to Nikita and Soraya, let's see how good a tag team you make, and sends them off for another challenge. This next bit fucking creased me up. Looks like it's just you and me, Penfold says to James Tye. The small team. I'm sure he loved being called small on national television. Poor James then has to ad-lib with a woman in front of a camera, and Ellison cuts off a very boring story about him knocking someone out during a karate lesson.
I did put that. I said Burnside tells him shut up and jog on.
Pretty much, yeah. Up in the tower, Captain Baker confuses Birchill by asking why if you move something by car it's called a shipment, but if you move it by ship it's called cargo. This is not the riddle. The actual riddle I thought was the easiest one of the lot. He says, you can do this to your food. It's the time to be jolly. More than 3 of them. Does one spring to mind? Birchill is still puffing and panting from running up the stairs, fails to guess the word season, and is sent back to the group.
They're so useless. Just shows how wrestlers are fucking dumb.
They definitely fared better at the physical than the mental challenges, yes. After the break, Nikita and Soraya are in wetsuits, and Ellison is giving the most complicated instructions. Brace yourselves. They have to zip line into the sea. One of them swims to a raft. The other one dives for a lobster pot with a key in it. They have to take the pot to the raft and use the key to open a box that contains a piece of paper with a ribbon around it. On the paper are 3 numbers that they have to yell back to shore, where Birchall will put them into a big machine. I'm pretty sure they are meant to cut out the bits where Penfold tells the team to encourage each other. Because, like, she's caught here saying to Birchall, tell him to hurry up, tell her to swim faster. And then they start shouting. Like, it's the you talk too much segment from Botchamania. Soraya dives to the pot, and as she swims to the raft, this was the point where I felt fucking exhausted watching this show. I assume this was all shot in one day. Like, the amount of stuff they have to do. And don't forget, in between all the physical challenges, you get 30-second slots where they're having to sprint around the building to the next door for the next challenge.
There's that timer at the side of it as well.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it is all in one day.
Yeah. Like they're constantly like running up and down stairs and all kinds of things. Like, this is a really physical show. So they can't get the key off the pot and have to try and hold it up while they try and undo the lock. And we get an unbroken 37-second shot of their backs as they struggle with the thing. Nobody thought to shoot the front. Nobody thought to get like close-ups of their faces or the key or anything like that. They eventually get the numbers and shout them out, but time is up. Apparently there's an explosion goes off, but nobody reacts to it as a tiny puff of smoke comes out of the machine. The final challenge is fucking fear factor stuff. How do I explain this? James Ty is enclosed up to the neck on this conveyor belt type contraption, so you can't see anything below his neck.
No.
It has this like endless zip on it, so as he moves forward, it undoes, and behind him it zips up, so he can only move forwards. He has to move forwards through various containers of bugs and creepy crawlies and things, doing something with his mouth in each one, like pulling a string, blowing into a straw, drinking, like blowing a dusty ping pong ball around, to reveal words that are on a blackboard outside. The others, or mostly just Paul Birchall, cross off these words as he shouts them out, and the one left after he's got through them all is the clue word. Have we all kept up with this?
Yeah, all I could think of watching this was James Ty looking like Pob.
Yes, he does.
If this was I'm a Celeb, he'd be like Paul Burrell screaming his cock off. Like bloody flies, rats, frogs around him, but he's got absolutely no personality.
It does have.
He's the most boring man in the world. And he's
very much the
over from fucking on the fucking bread line.
He's very much the charisma vacuum in the team, because even Birchall has a little bit of it.
Yeah,
not massive.
However, this bit delivers the actual best moment of the show. It's the sight of just James Ty's head going, out of the way, frog. He is so desperate to get through this. Like, he pulls a drawstring and a bunch of mealworms drop in front of him. The last one is full of flies. That is fucking gross. Like, there's cockroaches in one. There is, there's like grasshoppers in one. And the last one is just absolutely filled with flies. He's so desperate to get out the last one, he misreads the word honesty as honey, which Birchall mishears as holly, and crosses the word holiness off the chart, leaving them with honesty as the incorrect clue as they go to the final round. So they sacrifice Soraya to get another clue, which is Indian. Soraya, the only one who's got her brain plugged in, says one of the words on the blackboard was holiday, and if this one is Indian, the code word must be summer. Yeah. They sensibly choose to sacrifice James Ty for another clue, which is dress, which confirms that the code word is summer. So Nikita and Paul run into this chamber and use cannonballs to spell out summer on letters on the floor. Tense close-ups as someone called Monique turns a tiger's head and coins drop into a cage. Nikita and Birchall then have to grab as much of that as they can and leg it out before the gate closes. Birchall doing his Indiana Jones roll under the gate at the end.
Did you think here, lads, that you saw the vision of the tigers going around?
Yes, that's the other thing.
And you were like, fucking hell, I hope they eat them.
No, I was more like, you've never seen the tigers and the contestants in the same shot. These tigers were clearly shot on one day and then sent off and never to be seen again. And they just cut the same footage in every episode.
I really wanted to see like some kind of CGI of like if one of them gets locked in the cage thing after the thing closes and just a tiger just appears and just.
Do you want to see a recreation? Do you want to see a recreation of that shot from Gladiator where the bloke rolls away from the tiger going for him in the Colosseum, except with Paul Birchall with 2 handfuls of pound coins rolling under a gate? So they've got as much money as they can. They pour all this into a weighing machine, which comes out as £190. And Penfold accidentally confirms this isn't for charity and says that's enough to buy the girls a pair of new dresses.
I mean, it'll be good for Alex Shane, to get 2 action figures for the tuck shop.
So, as seasoned Fort Boyard fans, what did you think of this episode? I'll start with Andy. Like, did you enjoy this?
I will say, watching it, I want to see more Fort Boyard.
Do you?
Yeah.
Is Challenge still on the air?
It's still on the air.
Challenge is still on the air.
I think it's probably due a remake by Channel 5. They could do with something. I was going into it thinking, it'll be okay, but I think as it went along, I was like, you know what? This is actually not too bad. And when you said about like the Crystal Maze, involvement and what have you, no, I really enjoyed it. I think it showed up, especially with the FWA wrestlers, who the smart ones were, which was, I hate to say it was Soraya, weren't it? She was the best contestant.
I mean, I think the women on this made the blokes look like Nikita. Absolute idiots. Like, Soraya had her brain plugged in, and Nikita was really good at the physical challenges she had to do.
Yeah, James Ty come across as absolutely fake.
And there's a bit at the end.
He looked like Pob. And also Paul Birchall, fucking hell, he's strongman gimmicks in the fucking bin. Before we've even seen it.
If WWE had seen this video of Paul Birchall in Fort Boyard, they would have fucking laughed him off. They were fucking citing him.
He wouldn't have even got to be a pirate.
And you know what? Doug Williams weren't even in the main event, so you know what? He's the main event.
If WWE had seen this, they'd have fucked off Birchall and they'd have hired the other guy to be the pirate, like the guy who beat him in his challenge. 3-year developmental deal.
You employ the French strongman and have fucking Burnside as his bloody
as the manager.
He's Paul Heyman.
Fuck yeah! Oh, those two invading the FWA. I'm up for that. Eddie, did you enjoy this episode? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it's good fun. Fort Boyard's always kind of quite a fun thing to kind of watch and see, and seeing it with FWA wrestlers was great. The FWA team was missing all stars. Like, I mean, again, if Alex had been on it, it would have been very interesting to see where it would have
He
went.
wouldn't have fitted in half the challenge rooms.
A world. Could you have imagined a world with Alex Shane and Tom Baker in a room together?
What about Drew McDonald with these with Baker and Burnside?
Oh, Jesus.
I think this was, again, it's a good way for them to get on TV, and it's a good way for them to kind of like, again, promote stuff. Winning £190 when I'm pretty sure Frank Bruno and some celebs won about £1,000.
Yeah,
even though that was for charity compared to this, is like,
it was because they didn't have enough time, weren't it? Like
Yeah, they would keep running out of time, and like you can see at the end, like when they're told to go for the gold, like Nikita gets the message way before Birchall does. He's standing there like an idiot, just looking at the thing while she's already running up and trying to grab stuff. Yeah.
They had to spell out some words, didn't they?
Yeah,
like,
summer.
weren't it, obviously summer, weren't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Yeah, as we said, like the women made the blokes look stupid. I had a great time watching this. Like I said, first episode I've ever seen. I don't think it's quite as good as the Crystal Maze because some of it is much more convoluted. Like the explanations of stuff they had to do and the overall explanation of the show of complete the challenges, get the keys, unlock the door, then get the clue words, then figure out what the code word is, then spell out the code word, then grab the money, then get out with the money, weigh the money, have that converted into actual currency. Fucking hell. Like that is not a pitch on a napkin. That is a pitch on like a roll of old dot matrix printer paper. Like it is so complicated, but it is still loads of fun. Like this is just available on YouTube. On the FWA files, have this on YouTube. And I want to see a James Ty versus Stubborn Frog rematch. So that is it for this non-wrestling episode of Nothing and Like It. Eddie, what you got going on? You were on something else recently. What are you doing?
Oh, yes. I was on a podcast talking about the best New Japan tag team of the current era, Bishamon and Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. I can see a shocked face there from my co-host, Mr. Ogden. But it is true. Much better than Gorillas of Destiny. Let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
But yes, I did that with Sheriff
Do you have any wrestlers?
Yes. Yeah, they have Oleg. They have Oleg, the new face of New Japan.
Oh yes.
And a couple of other people. But yeah, you can find me on that. I think I've shared that on Twitter. That was with Sheriff Lone Star, who is a worker of the Alex Shane Illuminati, and Smart Invested. So I'll quote tweet that, and you can find me on Twitter at Eddie Sideburns, 5-star wrestling Sideburns, with my show that is not going. We've unfortunately suffered delays due to the fact that we can't get a ring on the moon. The man who was supposed to drive the ring to the moon, he has decided not to answer any of my texts.
Space shuttle broke down outside the M1.
Maybe Steve Linsky might want to give me a call at some point. I think he's too busy with World of Sport trying to bring that thing back, because fuck knows we need that in the year 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and other than that, that's it. But thank you again, as always.
Andy, how about you?
Myself, you can follow on X, formerly Twitter.
Still Twitter.
Free. And also my podcast, the Graps and Claps podcast at GCP Podcast 1. Recently done reviews of North's Big Show, Thunderstruck 2, and also Pinfall Pro, which had a total of 36 people at it.
Is that the lowest attended show that you've been to, though?
It's not, no. I was fearing the worst about 1:45 on a Sunday afternoon, when only 5 of us was in reception at this venue. And then another 31 turned up. No, the lowest show still is that Great Bear show at Fallowfield, where 21 people turned up and 12 were paid. With Axel Dieter Jr., Pete Dunne, Chris Brooks, Zack Sabre Jr.
That card is fucking wild when you look at it today, and 36 people or whatever, 20
and
people.
Tony Storm versus Tegan Knox, Nixon Neal back
Jesus Christ.
Back in the day. What we got coming up on the show? Well, we've got, I think we're doing the second night of the Future Shot 20th anniversary, which could be Chris Egan's final match. We've also got the big all-in weekender of Riot Cabaret, Red Pro's big anniversary show at the Copper Box, All In. And also we've got Muck Volume 4 coming up, which is featuring our look at Kane's May 19th dilemma. So going obviously, go and follow the show at all your good podcasting feeds and on Twitter at GCP Podcast 1.
Fabulous. You can find everything to do with this show at linktr.ee/FWApod. We are on Twitter and Blue Sky at FWApod and Instagram at FWA.pod. As for me personally, my Twitter is locked. Fuck off. Don't follow me. And that's it. We will be back to... Everything I posted was overrun by fucking porn bots, and I was sick of it. So I'm like, right, I don't need any more followers. I've got enough. I've got my little circle. I'm just going to talk to them.
Yesterday, as we record, I blocked 106 porn bots on my Cats and Claps account.
But let through another 400 just in case they're real women.
They still turned me down as I was sucking my thumb in a barrel full of tits. But yeah, no, it was such a great experience.
Yeah. So, bugger that. Next month, back to regularly scheduled programming. October the 13th, 2002, York Hall, Bethnal Green. British Uprising. And there's two things you can do about it.
FWA.